Tonight, severe storms tear through the state line, the latest updates, and the damage in the area. And a Rockford symbol of progress celebrates a milestone, the festivities held at the Women's Suffrage Plaza. And a 4-year-old girl in the fight for her life, how the community rallied in Loves Park for Sophia Gilbert.
Live from WTVO 17, this is Eyewitness News at 6.
Good evening, I'm Blake Dietz. Thanks for joining us this evening. We'll get to those stories in a moment, but first, severe thunderstorms have made their way through the state line. Hail, downed trees, and power lines have all been reported. Let's go back to meteorologist Jordan Wolf in the Weather Center for the latest. Jordan?
Well, Blake, we sent one of our photographers out there and brought back some of these pictures showing some of the damage from parts around downtown Belvedere, actually just to the north of Highway 20, where there you can see a lot of the downed trees, a lot of the debris in the roadways, and even some limbs that had been knocked down as well. A lot of that damage due to likely straight line winds, as most of that was occurring within that storm. We'll take a look now with radar as those storms were coming through. This is how things shaped up. That was a really strong pocket of really strong winds that came down right over top of Belvedere. This is centered between 3 and 4 p.m. when that radar loop is going through. And you can see that pocket of those darker colors where those heavier rains came in, as well as that brighter red color when I switch over to velocity. And that's where some spots we're seeing likely wind gusts of 60, possibly close to 70 miles per hour. More than likely a microburst came down right on top. There's our storm reports, pretty centered over Belvedere, and many of those reports for those downed trees, but also a few instances of hail that came down as well. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you any additional updates as well as some damage video here later on tonight.
All right, thank you, Jordan. A Rockford art piece celebrating women's rights is celebrated for a milestone anniversary. The Rockford Women's Suffrage Coalition led a 5-year anniversary celebration of the Women's Suffrage Plaza. That plaza is located on the banks of the Rock River near the Riverfront YMCA. It was dedicated in 2020, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which ensured women's rights to vote. It's highlighted by a 15-tall, 3-panel tower, one of which depicts Rockford activist Dr. Connie Goody. Guest speakers were featured throughout the event. One organizer says it's crucial to remember the past to fight for a better future.
It's even more important to point out in the days when women could not vote, could not own property, couldn't, or in later years could not have a charge card. All of these things are majorly important for women, and so we feel like the sculpture is a monument which reminds us of the importance of all of the rights we have and that we have to struggle to keep them.
The artwork was created by artist Susan Burton, and the plaza was costed around $120,000. Voters and Democratic candidates gathered at Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Local 23 in Rockford today for a 16th District Forum. 4 candidates, Paul Nolly, Joe Albright, Scott Best, and Brendan Morgan, are vying to upseat incumbent Republican Darren LaHood as Illinois' U.S. Representative for the 16th District. The event included a Q&A session, a meet and greet, and the candidates discussed their platforms and visions. One candidate says the 16th District's territory makes these events especially important.
It's definitely important to get out and speak with voters face to face, meet them where they are, especially the 16th District is a very rural district. It kind of cuts around the major cities, so we've got a lot of small towns, a lot of farms, a lot of rural areas, and it's especially important to engage with those voters because on a national level, usually they're the ones forgotten about and left behind.
The winner of the April 2026 primary will run against Representative LaHood in that November. The 90-degree temperatures certainly show summer is still holding on strong, but there are some signs of fall on the horizon, one of them being the start of apple orchard season. Curran's Orchard celebrated its opening day this morning. Fall favorites like apples, hay wagon rides, and of course apple cider donuts are all back to ring in the season. Other apple orchards and pumpkin patches around the state line are preparing to open as well. Edwards Apple Orchard in Poplar Grove is set to open next Friday the 22nd. Edwards West location in Winnebago will also open that day. Valley Orchard in Cherry Valley is currently open, however their apple season starts Saturday, August 30th. And Lindbergh Pumpkin Patch in Caledonia will be welcome back guests on Friday, September 12th. A full list of opening dates for orchards and pumpkin patches across the area can be found on our website. Just go to mystateline.com. A notice for boaters on the Rock River. Sections of the river have been restricted to a slow, no-wake speed. That comes from the Rock County Sheriff's Office, which announced the restriction today. Portions of the river from Indian Ford Dam south of Edgerton, Wisconsin, to the WBR Town Line Road Bridge just north of Beloit are under the restriction. Water levels in the area have exceeded the 6.5 feet limit that requires slow, no wake. The community rallies around a local girl battling a terrible diagnosis. 4-year-old Sophia Gilbert was diagnosed with stage 3 kidney cancer in June. She underwent surgery to remove the tumor. However, the cancer returned. Gilbert is now undergoing 14 cycles of chemotherapy. Today, a fundraiser was held at Easy Tiger in Loves Park to benefit Gilbert and her family. Proceeds from food, raffles, and a silent auction all went to support the family. Sophia's mom says the support her daughter has received since her diagnosis has been overwhelming.
I think that causes a lot of emotions that come out as well, but it's been very overwhelming in the best way possible, all the support and love that we've seen. Every time I open Facebook, all I see is people sharing pictures of her and her story and stuff, so it's very emotional.
The family has established a Venmo for donations. A link to that can be found in this story on our website, mystateline.com. No deal was reached following the meeting between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Coming up, the latest on talks to end the war in Ukraine as Trump prepares to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky. President Trump has returned to Washington following his meeting with Russian President Putin. Trump now prepares to meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky as talks of a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia continue. ABC correspondent Christiane Corradero has the latest.
Tonight, President Trump is back in Washington. Ukrainian President Zelensky is preparing to travel to Washington, and Russia's Vladimir Putin today is calling the Ukraine war summit useful, even though it failed to reach a ceasefire. One day after trading hearty handshakes, smiles, and even laughs in Anchorage, Alaska, it's unclear what, if anything, was accomplished.
There were many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway.
President Trump now says the best way forward is to work towards a peace agreement without a ceasefire first, adopting Russia's position. Trump posting it was determined by all that the best way to end the horrific war between Russia and Ukraine is to go directly to a peace agreement, which would end the war and not a mere ceasefire agreement, which oftentimes do not hold up. Before the meeting, the president was demanding for a ceasefire.
I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today.
Going into the summit, it was feared Putin would demand Ukraine cede several territories. Sources confirmed to ABC News President Trump informed Zelensky and European leaders Putin did just that.
We know that Putin's demands are to take the rest of Donetsk, the rest of Zaporizhia, and the rest of Kherson. Very maximalist demands. It's going to be very difficult for Zelensky to give up that much territory.
Zelensky is now set to meet with President Trump at the White House on Monday. Their last Oval Office meeting was tumultuous. And tonight we're learning First Lady Melania Trump wrote Vladimir Putin a letter about the thousands of Ukrainian children President Zelensky says have been kidnapped by Russia during the war. Two White House officials tell ABC News Trump personally handed that letter to Putin. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Anchorage, Alaska.
Well, as we talked about earlier, thunderstorms, damaging winds, and hail have dominated the weather headlines in the state line today. After the break, meteorologist Jordan Wolf will give us the latest on the severe weather and an early look into next week. His forecast is next.
Now, your first warned weather forecast from meteorologist Jordan Wolf.
It's been a busy afternoon and evening here in the weather centers. We've been tracking several rounds of severe thunderstorms. The second round, not quite as strong as that first one. That first round came through earlier today, hugging areas very close to and east of Rockford. And the second one taking a very similar track, although at the moment, all of these storms in southern Wisconsin are below those severe limits. They are still producing some very heavy rainfall and lots of lightning, as well as those gusty winds. Even out ahead of that storm, similar to the last one, you see this green line extending out before the storms get there. That's actually an outflow boundary kicking out well ahead of the storm, the outflow of that cold air out ahead of the thunderstorms, producing some gusty winds even before that storm were to arrive. And you can see the storms well off in the distance, off to the north and northeast, from the vantage point of our Mercy Health SkyTrack camera in downtown Rockford on the Supply Corps building. That's brought to us by Window World. All of these storms thus far have been tracking along what we call an instability gradient. The instability is the energy that feeds into these storms, and there is a lot of it with that heat and humidity that was in place earlier today, primarily focused near and southwest of Rockford, especially where areas did not get any storms just yet. Those storms have a tendency to hug right along the edge of that instability gradient, and that's what they've been doing so far as of late, and that's what they continue to do. So going back to satellite and radar, you can see there's that instability gradient setting up just very close to Rockford, and the storms hugging mostly near and to the east of it. But back behind it, we still have a lot of that instability or storm energy in place. So if any storms were to get going in that area, they could turn severe. That would be the likeliest of those storms to be severe, is if anything were to develop out to the west of Rockford, where the atmosphere has not yet been worked over. Those storms could turn severe. Our storms right now out to the east of that, likely going to produce a lot of rain, still a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, but not quite as likely to produce that severe weather potential. Nonetheless, the outflow boundary from those previous storms may end up setting up very close to the state line, and that could end up developing this gradient of storms that could continue to feed into one another as we head through the evening and overnight hours tonight. Those storms kind of act like a funnel. They track along the same area over and over again, and that's where you end up getting very heavy rainfall rates, and you start adding up those rainfall totals very quickly. So flash flooding could become a concern, especially if these storms track over the same areas that have already seen some of that very heavy rainfall. Severe weather, not quite as big of a concern here locally with areas that saw those storms already, but nonetheless still a level 2 out of 5 risk in place. Sunday, not quite as strong, but back into Monday, an isolated severe storm cannot be completely ruled out. Heavy rain going to be a bit more of a concern here through the evening tonight. You can see with or potential rainfall, if those storms were to back build and track over the same areas over and over, that's where you start adding up 1-2 inches of rainfall. This is not an exact location of where those storms may end up producing that most heavy rainfall, but does show an example that there could be some heavier rain into the night tonight. Weather Prediction Center tends to agree a slight risk of flash flooding, highlighting areas near and to the north of Interstate 88 tonight going into tomorrow. A big change in our temperature for those who have seen compared to those who have not seen storms. It's still 92 down in Sterling, 85 Dixon, 75 in Rockford. That rain cool air showing up very evident for some of us, and certainly for our weather watcher Terry down in Genoa. He's reporting a temperature in the 70s, 70 degrees, 68 the dew point, nearly an inch of rain for him out that direction. As we head into tonight, we likely will continue to see those scattered thunderstorms develop, and possibly a few of those even lingering into the early part of tomorrow as well. Tomorrow will bring a slight break in that heat and that humidity. We only rebound back to the mid 80s, but we'll likely see our next storms arriving late Sunday night going into Monday. Scattered storm potential, a high of 88 there on Monday, back to 84 on Tuesday. Once that front pushes through for good, that clears us out and also dries us out for a few days as we return back to the low 80s.
We'll continue to keep an eye on those storms. Thanks, Jordan. Drew's in next with sports. The high school football previews continue. Stay with us to learn more from the Stockton Blackhawks.
Now sports with Drew Collins.
The Stockton Blackhawks have a three-headed trio in their backfield. They look to improve off of their 7-win season from a year ago. Let's head on over to Stockton for a closer look. The Stockton Blackhawks had their best season since 2019 last year. They finished with a 7-4 record and won a playoff game in 1A over Princeville. With that said, the Blackhawks only lost 2 seniors while returning their top 3 rushers from a year ago.
Everything we do starts with the run game. Obviously, when you get 3 backs that are right near 1,000 yards between them, and then you throw in Noah Larson, our quarterback, who is a running threat back there too. So
Mark Detweiler, Carter Blair, and Jack Mezendike combined for 2,997 rushing yards last season, and they look to make more noise. They were all so good that all three of them finished in the top 6 in the conference in rushing yards.
I have to say Carter is the fast one out of the three-headed monster. Mark is the beast out of us, and then I'm just the one that is the well-rounded, I guess.
I think we all just have like our own thing that we're good at, and I think that's just what sets us apart.
Noah Larson will return as QB1, and his brother Aiden Larson joins the squad as a sophomore. Eli Larson earned first-team All-Conference on both sides of the ball. Last winter, he was a 1A state champ in wrestling at 175.
we've got Jeremiah up there, and then Eli at tight end. It's a good mix of youth and experience up there. And like we said, it all starts up there. If we're not physical up front, then we're not going to be successful.
Practice, our goal is just to lay anyone and everyone out pretty much. So it really translates good into games.
Linebacker Mauricio Glass, defensive back Arison Bauer, and tight end and D lineman Eli Larson round a deep senior class. Stockton also has a bunch of upperclassmen in the lineman group, led by Jeremiah Luke, who earned first-team All-Conference last season. This could be one of the eldest teams in the state line this season, and they look to claim the top spot of the conference for the first time in 9 years. Tomorrow night, I'll preview the Jefferson Jayhawks. The Colts welcome in the Packers for preseason week number 2. Packers played their backups. Malik Willis threw for less than 50% and had no scoring drives. Taylor Eldrisma and Sean Clifford got the rest of their QB reps. The Colts played 4 different QBs as they still look for their QB1. The Packers ran the ball at 4 yards per carry to win 23-19. The Cubs have been struggling. Meanwhile, the Brewers on a 13-game win streak. The Cubs did win today to shake their 2-game losing streak. The Cubbies haven't won a series since August 3rd. Hopefully today's win propels them to a series win tomorrow. Shodi Managa had another strong showing. 7 innings, only 3 hits. He also struck out 6 batters. The bats were pretty slow again today. The Pirates led into the 4th inning. Kelly strikes a grounder over the mound. He brings in a run to tie it. Jumping all the way to the 8th inning, Seiya Suzuki smacks another grounder, and the Cubs take the lead and hang on for the 69th win of the season. They now trail the Brewers by 8.5 games. The Cubs win 3-1. Javier Saad will get the start tomorrow. The White Sox are underway with the Royals. Looks like the Royals lead 1-0 in the 1st inning. That's sports. We'll be right back.
Well, Jordan, there were some extreme storms that really came through. I had a caller say that they thought there was a tornado that came through Belvedere, asking what was going on. So, how bad were these thunderstorms, and is there anything coming, soon that people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I don't think that it was a tornado. There certainly could have felt like one in the immediate moment,
Right.
But based on some of the pictures that I've looked at, it looks like most of the damage is primarily straight line winds, which still can be damaging in and of itself, but may not necessarily be that circulation that would have produced a tornado. There are still some scattered thunderstorms here. First Warn Interactive Radar from Rockford, Glass and More passing over very similar areas saw some storms earlier today. Those are not severe at the moment, but we still could see the potential for heavy rain, gusty winds, and possibly even some flash flooding overnight tonight. We are a little bit cooler following those storms, only back to 85 for tomorrow and rebounding to the upper 80s Monday.
Thanks, guys. That's our show. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you at 10.